Referred to me as Wild King Nights. And what a Wild King Night was when him and a guest would go to a hotel room or be at his home, his bedroom, and they would have intimate gatherings. I would have to go and prep that hotel room, which consisted of baby oil.
What if I told you a single leaked tape could topple the biggest names in music, celebrities, moguls, even political faces? Inside Diddy's private parties, nothing was just fun. It was control, blackmail, and power. And now the world is finally finding out. Leaked footage recently surfaced, painting Diddy's private parties in a shocking new light. Far from being casual music gatherings, insiders now suggest these events were elaborate setups aimed at entrapping stars, including Burna Boy. 50 Cent quickly seized the narrative, asserting that these gatherings weren't about music at all. They were about power, manipulation, and leverage. As clips spread across social media, each release seemed darker than the last, leaving fans who once admired Diddy's mentorship questioning the foundation of his empire. Comment threads erupted into chaos overnight, with hashtags demanding justice trending across platforms. By morning, major news outlets reported that federal authorities were already scrutinizing the tapes, probing potential connections between Diddy's famous parties and allegations of coercion and secret recordings. The story wasn't merely breaking, it was detonating. The allegations echo earlier industry whispers, reminiscent of the time Cassie testified about coercion during an airplane ride from France. According to testimony, Diddy allegedly threatened, "If you don't cooperate, I'll release one of the videos you appear in," aiming to humiliate. This kind of intimidation, sources suggest, may have been a recurring tactic. The industry reacted swiftly, almost frantically. Artists rushed to scrub old photos, past collaborators issued cautious statements, and insiders quietly referenced contracts that reportedly gave Diddy partial control over royalties and image rights. Observers claim these agreements weren't just standard legal paperwork. They were designed to ensure loyalty, silence, and compliance. Burna Boy's rise, they say, mirrors a familiar pattern. What looked like mentorship on the surface was, behind closed doors, strategic domination cloaked in charm. On paper, Diddy appeared to be the ultimate guide. He executive produced Burna Boy's 2020 album Twice as Tall, a record that earned Afrobeat its first major Grammy. The achievement celebrated Diddy's global vision, marking him as a talent scout of international stature. Yet behind the accolades, reports hinted at micromanaged creative decisions and unusual contract clauses. Even the promotional campaign for the album, insiders reveal, was tightly controlled to keep Burna Boy within Diddy's orbit. The tension escalated with a fabricated Instagram post, allegedly claiming, "I helped you in your first and only Grammy." Diddy quickly denied the post, but the optics had already shifted. The public began questioning the sincerity of their friendship. As the saying goes in Hollywood, don't trust nobody. In the cutthroat worlds of New York and California, many stars struggle to assert boundaries, a gap some manipulative figures exploit. Meanwhile, the scandal deepened. In March 2024, Homeland Security raided Diddy's Los Angeles and Miami properties, investigating alleged trafficking and coercion. Agents reportedly seized more than 1,000 bottles of substances described as baby oil-like, allegedly used during events dubbed freak-offs. Far from innocent gatherings, these parties were allegedly orchestrated encounters filmed without consent. Then the footage emerged grainy, chaotic, and featuring celebrities whose identities remain partially confirmed. Each clip hinted at manipulation and power plays reaching far beyond the music industry. What started as gossip had escalated into allegations of systemic corruption. 50 Cent capitalized on the unfolding story, amplifying the public's attention and scrutiny. 50 Cent's rivalry with Diddy wasn't a recent development. It stretched all the way back to 2006, when he called out the bad boy mogul for shady dealings in his diss track The Bomb. Fast forward to 2024, and those old warnings suddenly seemed almost prophetic. With Diddy now facing federal investigations, 50 Cent took to social media, quipping, "Now it's not Diddy do it, it's Diddy done." Not long after, he announced a Netflix documentary promising to dissect decades of alleged misconduct, a project that insiders claim had been quietly in the works for months. Behind the cameras, 50 was gathering testimony from former bodyguards, producers, and assistants. Some described an empire maintained more by fear than loyalty, a web of influence that stretched behind closed doors. Amidst the storm, Burna Boy's camp stayed conspicuously silent. That silence, many observers noted, spoke louder than any statement. Nigerian media outlets reported that he was under pressure to publicly distance himself from Diddy, yet his name kept cropping up online, tied to both the Grammy win and allegations about Diddy's methods of control. Fellow artist Speed Darlington even mocked the situation publicly, hinting that the accolades might have come with a price. The comments were harsh, but the implications lingered. In an era dominated by leaks and viral speculation, even unverified claims can feel like evidence, especially when they fit a recognizable pattern. And the emerging pattern around Diddy was clear: mentorship, loyalty, control, and silence. Insiders added another chilling layer. Nearly every corner of Diddy's mansions had reportedly been under surveillance. Hidden cameras, disguised as ordinary decor, funneled footage into private servers. While that sounds almost cinematic, federal prosecutors have confirmed that video material was indeed seized during raids. The paranoia now spreading through Hollywood is palpable. Who appears in those tapes? From top hip-hop artists to influential political figures, some have gone off the grid entirely, avoiding interviews and public appearances. Even pastors and producers who once proudly attended Diddy's events have vanished from the spotlight. If the footage is ever released, reputations could crumble in a single night. The escalation from rumor to potential indictments was swift. Earlier this year, Diddy's former producer, Lil Rod, filed a 70-page lawsuit that painted a starkly unflattering portrait of life behind the mogul's empire. What once seemed like whispers in the industry was now materializing into legal action, forcing Hollywood to reckon with a story that had long been simmering beneath the surface. Allegations are mounting: forced intimacy, drinks laced with substances, and power plays disguised as career opportunities. Diddy's legal team has dismissed much of it as fiction, yet fragments of these claims eerily match what investigators uncovered during the raids. Court filings reveal that Lil Rod, Diddy's former producer, spent over a year living in the mogul's home while working on the album Off the Grid, earning a mere $21,000. His testimony describes a constant atmosphere of intoxication and surveillance, an environment that blurred the lines between work, life, and control. Whether exaggerated or accurate, it fits neatly into a broader pattern of dominance and manipulation. Indictments have yet to appear, leaving a lag between allegations and formal charges. The legal machinery is painstakingly combing through forensic evidence, and patience is required. Meanwhile, 50 Cent refuses to let the story fade. In interviews, he recalls feeling uneasy years ago when Diddy offered to take him shopping, a seemingly small, odd moment that, in hindsight, hinted at something more unsettling. What once read as eccentric now appears strategic, a single thread in a larger web of calculated influence. For 50, the scandal confirms what he has been saying for years. In the music industry, power can disguise obsession, and those who resist can face blacklisting. Attention has returned to the tapes. One male participant reportedly handed a recording of a 2023 Miami freak-off to federal prosecutors in late September. That testimony aligns with seized evidence and reinforces fears that multiple sessions were documented. Prosecutors describe encounters that were far from consensual. Coercion, substances, and threats of blackmail were allegedly involved. Diddy's attorneys maintain that all acts occurred between consenting adults, but the sheer volume and consistency of evidence cast doubt. It's now a battle of narratives, one built on charisma and denial, the other grounded in documentation and fear. Hollywood is feeling the tremors. Former allies are publicly asserting their independence. Executives are hastily distancing themselves from ventures that were once untouchable. His label, fashion brands, beverage partnerships, all now carry a stain that no PR strategy can fully erase. In the eye of this storm sits Burna Boy, silent yet under intense scrutiny. Every award, every collaboration, Every photo is suddenly reframed through suspicion, tainting achievements he never sought to politicize. The sense of unraveling is unmistakable. Raids, leaks, lawsuits, and the looming threat of more footage continue to escalate tension. The unspoken question hangs in the air. If these tapes reveal the worst of what insiders claim, who else could fall? In an industry where mentorship can mask manipulation, silence no longer offers protection. As investigators dig deeper into C servers, new names, unexpected, high-profile, are reportedly emerging. Sources warn that the next leak could rewrite everything we thought we knew about Diddy's empire.
But now there's an added element to this, an added element of drama. Diddy is going to speak. He has some things he wants to say to the judge, to the court, and he has actually filed a request with the judge that he can wear street clothes instead of his prison jumpsuit because he wants to look good.
Now, the insiders are clashing openly. Diddy continues to deny every allegation, but 50 Cent has been unwavering, insisting he's been sounding the alarm for years. His warnings paint a picture of manipulation that allegedly turns rising stars into pawns. The forthcoming Netflix project isn't just another documentary, it's being framed as the industry's reckoning. Rumors circulate that some of the so-called freak-off tapes now in federal possession were used as blackmail tools. Footage captured under the guise of wild celebrations may have later been weaponized to enforce loyalty. Former staffers claim these recordings weren't mere souvenirs. They were insurance policies, reminders of who truly held power. Viewed through that lens, the sudden silence from prominent figures begins to make sense. No one knows which clip could surface next, or whose career might crumble with a single leak. The tension between denial and accusation grows sharper with each passing day. Diddy's legal team maintains that every encounter involved consenting adults, dismissing the case as a modern witch hunt. But 50 Cent, echoing his long-standing suspicions, remains relentless. It seems like I've been saying this for 10 years. He reminds the public, referencing the discomfort he felt at the legendary parties he famously avoided. That phrase, uncomfortable energy, has taken on a life of its own online, repeated by insiders and fans alike who claim they sense the same unease. The mogul once celebrated as a figure of brotherly love is now being recast as someone whose empire was built on secrecy, fear, and loyalty enforced through intimidation. The drama intensifies as Diddy prepares to speak in court. He has filed a request to appear in street clothes instead of a prison jumpsuit, aiming to control the optics of his appearance before the judge. Meanwhile, the raids continue to reveal startling details: vast quantities of substances, hidden cameras, and the now infamous 1,000 bottles of baby oil, a symbol of excess and alleged debauchery. Federal investigators suggest these bottles may have contained chemical enhancers linked to the parties. Several witnesses have told prosecutors that the so-called freak-offs crossed every boundary, allegedly coercing guests into actions they would never consent to while sober. Sources close to the investigation report that the footage implicates not only celebrities, but also high-profile executives and even political figures. In other words, the fallout isn't limited to music. It stretches into the corridors of influence, exposing a network where power, fear, and secrecy intersect. The deeper investigators dig, the less this looks like a typical celebrity scandal and more like a blueprint for organized exploitation. Burna Boy's connection keeps resurfacing, no matter how much his team tries to redirect attention. After all, it was Diddy who executive produced Twice as Tall, the Grammy-winning album that launched Burna onto the global stage. Now, that success is being reinterpreted through suspicion. Fans online question whether the deal was genuine collaboration or a carefully orchestrated power play disguised as opportunity. Nigerian media have echoed that skepticism, reporting blunt commentary from fellow artists. When Speed Darlington quipped, "How much oil did Diddy use on you before they gave you that Grammy?" It wasn't just a joke. It crystallized the cynicism now shaping public perception. Silence, too, has amplified the storm. In a world where every omission can be read as complicity, the quiet from Burna's camp only fuels speculation. What's particularly unsettling is the consistency across multiple accounts. Diddy's former producer, Lil Rod, described 13 months of studio work under constant intoxication, surveillance, and manipulation while living in Diddy's home for a mere $21,000. Cameras monitored the space, and strange, unwritten rules governed daily life. When federal agents later confirmed the seizure of hundreds of hours of recordings, his claims suddenly gained alarming credibility. Even if only part of his testimony holds up, it exposes a culture where creativity was inseparable from control and everyone was expendable. This controversy is reshaping how the industry views mentorship. Powerful partnerships are under a new microscope. Critics argue Diddy perfected a system where mentorship served as a veneer for dominance. Lavish praise up front, contractual traps hidden in fine print, and emotional dependence disguised as brotherhood. In this world, gratitude becomes silence. Executives are reportedly scrambling, reviewing contracts to ensure they aren't similarly vulnerable, concerned not just about legal liability, but the reputational damage that association with this scandal could bring. Industry insiders whisper about an inner circle of high-earning artists who may have known what occurred but stayed silent to protect their careers. The calculated quiet of rappers, producers, and even fashion icons underscores just how far the influence stretched. Everyone is watching to see which names prosecutors will reveal next. Sources say at least one male performer involved in a taped encounter has agreed to cooperate under a protected testimony deal, suggesting the fallout could extend beyond Diddy, implicating anyone who benefited from his power or secrets. Experts now speculate that Diddy's drive for control may stem from something deeper than business strategy. Psychological factors, an obsession with dominance, a compulsion to orchestrate events, and a need to control every detail could be as much a part of the story as the contracts, cameras, and parties themselves. The investigation isn't just uncovering misconduct, it's revealing the mechanisms behind a culture of fear that may have touched everyone who stepped inside Diddy's orbit. Former colleagues describe Diddy as a man consumed by dominance, someone who thrives on controlling every interaction. This wasn't simply about running a label or managing artists, it was about orchestrating lives. Behind every contract, every party, every recording session, there was an undertone of control, an unspoken rule that nothing moved without his approval. Psychologists observing the case suggest this could reflect a kind of God complex, where the line between guidance and manipulation disappears. In this mindset, mentorship no longer resembles generosity. It becomes ownership. The stakes are starkly illustrated. When access to phones and personal communications is controlled, it's your word against a billionaire's. The balance of power is predetermined. Viewed through this lens, the alleged tapes and coercion take on a new significance. They weren't merely for gratification, they were proof of authority, a documented portfolio of leverage. Financial analysts hint that these tactics may have served a dual purpose, enforcing loyalty and maximizing profit. Artists bound by fear rarely renegotiate, and teams built on silence rarely dispute revenue. Every whispered rumor about hidden footage or secret contracts reinforces the suspicion that money and dominance were inseparable, each feeding the other. If this theory is accurate, the freak-offs and recordings weren't isolated scandals. They were a business model disguised as entertainment. The pattern may have operated unchecked for decades, with Diddy projecting a public image of benevolent mentorship while privately consolidating power. Industry insiders now question whether his empire was ever about music, or if it was always about cultivating dependency and control. Viewed this way, what was once chaos appears deliberate, a calculated empire built on fear. The implications extend far beyond music. Bad Boy Records, once a symbol of ambition and excess, is now tied to corruption and collapse. Luxury brands, television deals, and legacies connected to Diddy are now radioactive. Even former allies like Jay-Z choose words carefully, offering sympathy without association. Lawyers scramble to separate companies from the man himself, hoping the business survives even if his reputation cannot. In entertainment, perception is currency, and right now, Diddy's name is toxic. The countdown intensifies. This Friday, Diddy will learn his sentence, But he has already seen the prosecutor's recommendation, over 11 years in prison, vastly higher than what his attorneys have proposed. Hollywood's tone has shifted from gossip to paranoia. Every leaked clip sparks new questions: who filmed it? Who appears in it? And who might be holding something even worse? Federal investigators are reportedly cataloging terabytes of footage, some going back more than a decade. If the recordings were indeed used to enforce obedience, the case could redefine the very mechanics of power in the entertainment industry. This isn't just about one man's downfall. It's about an industry culture that long rewarded silence until silence itself became complicity. The ripple effects are already spreading. Younger artists are demanding clearer contracts. Performers of all genders are stepping forward with accounts of coercion and intimidation. Even Burna Boy, once untouchable, now faces the uneasy reality that every success linked to Diddy's name is under scrutiny. While his team maintains that his Grammy win was fully earned on merit, public perception is shifting faster than any damage control strategy can manage. In an industry built on illusion, trust has become the rarest currency, and right now, it seems no one has any left. As allegations multiply, the web of control appears nearly endless. From executives to spiritual leaders, from chart-topping artists to athletes, the fear of exposure has turned entertainment into a pressure cooker. Each day brings a new headline, a fresh name whispered, another rumor of a hidden tape surfacing. The audience watches, waiting for the next revelation, knowing the story is far from over. And yet, with no clear endpoint in sight, one fact looms large. When the final tape emerges, the faces on it may be far more surprising than anyone anticipates. The question remains, are we truly ready for what comes next? This story isn't finished, and the shadows it casts will likely reshape the very way the world sees fame, power, and the cost of silence. Until then, stay vigilant, stay curious, and remember, in the world of fame, nothing stays buried forever.